Hey everyone, Jawad here with Hit the Apex podcast. Thank you for joining me this week. Got to start this one actually by sharing some unfortunate news. Obviously, you guys know what's going on in the US, and I just wanted to put it out there that I'm sharing my condemnation for racism in wake of these sad events that are ongoing over there in the US at the moment. I stand in solidarity with the black community and, in fact, people from all walks of life. We should all be standing together in times like this, obviously with the pandemic going on as well. But ultimately, Black Lives Matter and we have to stand together. So, yeah, please support anyone and people from the black community wherever you can. That would be great. So let's crack on with it anyway today, because I've got a couple of special guests with me on the line. I've got my friends from the Regen E Racing podcast. Welcome back to Deano, and welcome for the first time, Chris.
Hello, good morning.
It's good to be on. Hello.
Good morning, good evening, on different parts of the world, of course. How are we both doing, guys? And good to hear your voices.
I'll let you start off, Chris. How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been great. I'm getting ready for bed. It's 9:30 over here, and we all know it's past my bedtime. So yeah, it's been a odd sort of day, very unproductive. But hey ho, I don't even know what day it is. They're all the same. But yeah, that's good. I'm good to be on.
Well, to be fair, it's a different day over there than it is here, so...
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
This is true.
But, yeah...
Time travelling.
I've been good. Haven't been doing too much. Just, trying to catch up with all the news going on, and lots coming out of Formula 1, obviously, as well. So, yeah, it's good. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy the last couple of weeks with the news, so we'll crack into the Formula 1 stuff a bit later. But starting off, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys, not that, I always love having a chat with you guys, is that we had a bit of a controversy a couple of weeks ago in the Formula E Race at Home Challenge. Now, it was actually big enough that it made mainstream news here, and that's when you know that all my non-racing friends start getting onto me like, what? They sacked a guy for this? But let's talk about it, because it was quite serious, and the incident in question, most of you will be familiar. If you're not, here's a quick rundown. Daniel Abt, Audi Formula E driver, was fined initially €10,000 and disqualified from the Berlin Virtual E-Prix, and that was due to the fact that he actually wasn't present racing. He had a stand-in, a professional sim racer, do it for him, and once they busted him, they cross-referenced some IP addresses to find out it wasn't actually him there. They started laying down the penalties, and then eventually what this led to was a suspension by Audi altogether, and they issued the statement saying that integrity, transparency and consistent compliance are top priorities for Audi in all activities the brand is involved in without exception. And at the end of it, it led to both parties basically parting ways. So, a lot of fallout has come from this, obviously. You guys, in your podcast last week, highlighted the immaturity of the act and also how it tarnishes the Race at Home Challenge and also the charity aspect of it as well, because they are in partnership with UNICEF and raising much needed funds for that cause. So, while drivers and stuff on social media have been quite vocal saying that maybe the sacking is too harsh, what do you guys think of this? Do you think it's too harsh? Do you think it's justified? Is this a sort of an example that we've got to learn from going into the future, that things like e-sports and virtual racing, when professional drivers and teams are involved, that it is more than just fun and games?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you've got to just put out there that it's for charity. The Race at Home Challenge is not a thing to be a bit of fun. It is seen as more of a professional sort of standing from Formula E, and I think Chris summed it up pretty well. What was he thinking? All of Audi's suppliers and sponsors, everyone that's part of the Audi brand, is just, yeah, he's brought them into disrepute basically. And no, it's not too harsh. And you've got to think, well, if this was a real race, what would happen? Obviously, it wouldn't be too easy to do that in real life. But at the same time, Daniel Abt should have been professional. We've seen other drivers not particularly enjoying the race at home challenge, but just getting on with it. Lucas de Gracia's teammate is at the back as well, and he is the utmost professional about it.
Yeah, Chris, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't think it's too harsh at all. I mean, the last time me and Dino spoke, this was before the suspension had even happened, I believe.
Yeah.
But everything that has happened to him is honestly justified, in my opinion. And that I know a lot of people will disagree with what me and Dino have said. We've seen a lot of posts online contrasting our opinion. But this is a esports series that Formula E have put a lot of effort into, and you've got all of the teams competing in it. You've got the full 2019-20 grid competing in it, and it's very much a professional thing. It's in partnership with UNICEF. This is a big deal. And in doing what he did, Abt immediately undermined everything that Audi stands for professionally, but also the championship on a whole and the charity. And I honestly think, when you're an athlete and a professional sportsman, you are constantly on this stage. And I think that's important to remember for all sports people. You're constantly in this public eye, and if you're working for a team, driving for a team, competing for a team, you will constantly be under speculation. If you have that controversy, they do have the right to break that contract. And Abt totally undermined the team, the partners, everything, and the damage that created. I mean, it was in national news. It was a big deal. It was a huge story. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen Abt's apology video, and it is very sincere, and I did watch it, and I did feel sorry for the guy, because it was for a laugh, essentially. But I can't understand how he failed to tell his team in the first place. It's like something didn't... Just X didn't mark the spot in this one. And yeah, I honestly... I can't understand how you can be so stupid about it, and I think it's fully deserved.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Like, maybe these guys don't understand how serious this, the E-Series are. All over the world, they're happening at the moment, and to such professional standard, to the point where they've got their, sponsor boards in the background. I don't know what's going on with the Nissan guys, because I feel like I'm having a seizure every time I look at their backgrounds. You can't even see them half the time. But when you've got, the professionalism that they're employing, no matter where they are, they've got to have the standard, which, I guess this is why we're all so outraged by this, because, as you said, Dino, it's like, what if this happened in real life? But then there's those people who kind of say, well, it's not real life, it's virtual. But it's like, well, it's the same thing. They're contracted to the team, and the team is partaking in this activity in this virtual space. The same rules apply. It would have been different if it was a private, let's say if it was a private server that they might have been streaming on their own Twitch account, nothing to do with the Race at Home challenge at all. But the fact that it was is, why this is such a a severe thing. And I agree with both of you that, yeah, in the end, it was kind of justified, the consequences that came from it. What do you guys, though, think of the drivers' reaction? You know, their peers like, you know, DaCosta, John Eric Verne, other drivers from other categories jumping onto Twitter and saying that they're going to quit Twitch as a result of this. What do you make of that? And, you know, are we kind of just like hoping that we get back to real racing sometime soon so we don't have to see this sort of stuff, or drivers complaining about this sort of stuff anymore?
Oh, I just think, well, you know, it is fun and games, but not the right place for it. And if they want to quit Twitch, well, that's fine. You know, I'm sure they're all aware what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. So it's nice that they are standing with their, you know, compatriot Daniel Abt. But yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if a driver wants to quit Twitch streaming, you know, knock yourself out, go for it. It's their decision. I think when they saw the action from Audi on Daniel Abt, there was this entire knee-jerk reaction in the paddock going, ugh, that could have been me. But like Dino said, you know, there's a time and a place for it, and doing it in a professional esports series endorsed by one of the biggest charities in the world isn't the time or place. Yeah. And, I mean, no, it's... And these drivers, you know, they've obviously taken a stand with Daniel Abt, which is fair enough, you know, he's their mate. But they were the ones who kind of pushed him under the bus in the live broadcast as well.
Yeah, Stoffel was the one who kind of exposed it, didn't he?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, you know, immediately after the race, Stoffel really pushed him under the bus, and then Jev as well did say, oh, we need to look at Daniel Abt because he definitely wasn't driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be a standard, really. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, of course. You know, I'm not disagreeing with that. But if they want to quit Twitch, you know, they can quit Twitch. I mean, I won't lose any sleep about it. So, yeah.
But what kind of gets me at the end of the day, and it goes back to what you were saying before, Chris, as well, is that these guys, they're still getting paid their, you know, whatever amount they get paid to race a Formula E car, to be doing this at home, you know, to make sure that all their sponsors are happy. So it's not like they're doing this for free. And, you know, if you're not doing it for free, then yeah, you've got to have that standard of professionalism as well. And then, you know, the knee-jerk reaction, as you say, and the drivers, you know, probably getting a bit too carried away with it. But at the same time, I guess this wasn't the first controversy that we saw in all the E-Series that we've had while we've been all in this collective lockdown as well. We kind of pointed them out on both of our shows over the last few weeks. You guys pointed it out too last week. Simon Pagenaud and Lando Norris. Like, I didn't really want to talk about this when it first happened because I'm like, really? It just seems like two kids have had a bit of a spit the dummy a little bit with each other. But then the Kyle Larson racial slur in the NASCAR series, which led to his sacking, that was, you know, yeah, you don't say that kind of stuff when you're on a live broadcast, and especially with, you know, team sponsor and everything, you know, it's being broadcast over the world. If it was like a live NASCAR race, would you expect someone to say that in the broadcast? No, exactly. So, and given what's going on as well at the moment in the US, if that was said now, then there would be even more backlash to that. So, you know, as much as it's kind of more laid back than real racing, at the same time, they've just got to keep the standard up. And I think the Bubba Wallace rage quit just seems a bit funny. It's like he's had enough. It's like playing Call of Duty or something. He's been killed too many times and just decides to rage quit in the middle of the game. So, yeah, you know, I guess it was bound to happen, some kind of controversy with this esports, because it's so new to, I guess many of us probably didn't even watch esports or virtual racing before COVID-19 stopped the real stuff. But it's been a learning experience for all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it has been very much been a learning experience. I'd watched the F1 Esports Pro Series a little bit prior to this, but I'd never truly like got in and dug deep. But there was always going to be controversy, and I think, well, certainly racing from home, it could probably bring in a false sense of security. Oh, it's a computer game. I'm behind a screen. No one can see me.
Yeah.
Until you use a racial slur, rage quit, crash on purpose, or cause a ringer plot. It does go to show that your actions do continue to be judged when you are racing professionally, and it is so important to remember that they are racing professionally. They're still under contract, and they're still representing their teams. This has been I don't know much about the NASCAR or the IndyCar esports series. I haven't really watched them. But with the Formula E Race at Home Challenge, at least, a lot of effort has gone into it. We have teams doing partner content some weekends.
Yep.
It's a big deal. They've got contracts to fulfill, rights to withhold, and as soon as some clowns essentially start to do some stuff like this, it was always going to happen, wasn't it? There was always going to be some backlash, and there's a large variety of backlash as well. Very different contexts on all of them.
Exactly. I think, because we've got all this time on our hands, I think people kind of just, can take whatever they want from it. And there was one thing that kind of caught my eye from this, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe in it, but as with anything, you might have a conspiracy theory floating around as well. So on Twitter, there was well-known Porsche GT driver Lawrence Vantor, who since then deleted this tweet and basically suggested that Audi used this as a perfect excuse to move Abt on for the next season. Because, am I not wrong, Chris, in thinking that Abt's seat for the season 7 next year was one up in the air, and that this might have possibly been used as an excuse to vacate that seat and possibly bring in a new driver for 2021.
Yeah, so I mean, Daniel Abt has been on a 12-month rolling contract since the end of season 3, season 4, I believe. And, even for the current Formula E season, there was doubt that he would be driving that Audi car. Like, a lot of doubt. There was talk that Nico Muller was going to get it, who's obviously very well known in the DTM series, driving for Audi. And looking at Abt's performances, I believe he'd had 1 points finish this season. I think it was slim, really, that Abt would have kept his seat. He'd had his time. He certainly wasn't performing to the same level of Degrassi, and in comparison to the rest of the field, he did look a little bit out of his depth. I would liken it to Nico Prost, very talented driver in the first 3 seasons. Then all of a sudden, when the series starts to heat up and get a bit more competitive, they kind of crack and buckle and blunder everything. So yeah, I mean, Abt wouldn't. I don't think he would have had his seat anyway for next season. But I don't think it's an excuse for Audi to get rid of him. Really, he would have lost the seat anyway. I think this is a kind of a case of, I'm going to liken it to a minefield here, and the minefield is German and it's got Audi branding all over it. And Daniel Abt has been put into said minefield, and this is going somewhere. Don't worry.
I hope so.
And they've kind of gone playing there, and he stood on the mine himself, and that's led to him going. So it was always going to happen, wasn't it? Yeah. The Race at Home Challenge was the mine, and Daniel Abt is unemployed.
There you go, then. Yeah, Race at Home was the mine. pretty good. And just quickly to round this one off, so obviously you said Nico Muller's name before, and he's currently with the Dragon team, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah. Apart from him, any other names do you reckon would be floating around too? Because obviously now that seat is vacant, and it's you could say it's a prized seat on that grid because it's with a manufacturer team, and Audi no doubt will be wanting to go after a constructors championship with two really good drivers. So they tested young Calvin Vanderlind at the young driver test that they had earlier this year. You reckon he's in with a chance for the seat? He's really good in the Audi GT car. I've seen him race at Bathurst a couple of times in the 12-hour. Rene Rast as well, another factory Audi driver. He's got a bit of age on him, 33, but he's raced a Formula E car, I think, in the past as well. So who do we think might be in contention for that seat?
I would love to see either. Firstly, because of his experience in Formula E, Robin Freins, and I think he's an Audi driver as well.
GT driver, yeah. He won actually at the Bathurst 12-hour a couple of years ago in a Audi, so that'd be a good option.
And of course, the Virgin cars have Audi under the bonnet, so it could be. The other one, just throwing this out there, Oliver Turvey.
Ooh.
Anything to get him out of a Neo,
I mean,
I think.
he's solid. And, I mean, what Audi needs at the moment is just a bit of, you don't want someone who's complacent and shows up one race and then nowhere the next. You need a solid driver and to just be able to get them back on track. And Oliver Turvey, we haven't seen what he can do because he's never had the car. And so I reckon this is the ideal time to get him in.
Chris, what do you reckon?
I love that Turvey idea. I think it'd be great. Let's talk about Oliver Turvey. Because Oliver Turvey is a massive talent. And the things that he's done for Neo are truly incredible. It's like his little project, is Neo. He got the podium for them. He's got a pole for them, but he hasn't really had that chance, has he? He hasn't had a chance with a big team, and this could be that big break that he needs. But Audi do definitely need a solid driver in that second car. I think Robin Freins could be a good fit in there. And Rene Rast as well. I've heard the name mentioned in Formula E. Around that second Audi seat, and I think he's understood to be an option. But it would essentially be... He's not a single-seater driver, that's the thing. And if he did go in Formula E, I think they would... if they were going to butter him up for that seat, they might put him in a different car, like they did with Nico Muller. And, I mean, a lot of people know that I'm a Nico Muller fanboy. I think he's very talented. And I would love to see Nico Muller in that car. It just depends on if he's really proved what he can do in that Dragon, which is like Oliver Turvey in that Neo.
I don't think it's as bad as the Neo, let's say, but it's been good to see Turvey doing pretty well in the Race at Home challenge. Actually, I'm sure there's been a collective sigh of relief that even the Neo car in the Race at Home challenge isn't as uncompetitive as it is in real life. So the same can't be said by Ma Qingha, unfortunately. But anyway, we'll leave that. Thank you for being able to talk about this topic. I know it's been a bit of a touchy one with some people, but obviously it's happened. There's been consequences, and the moral of the story is, don't do it. Some people basically have just said at the end, don't cheat. That's what they liken it to. So let's move it on now. And some new motorsport categories let's talk about, or a category in particular. And this is what you introduced me to, Dino. I kind of had a bit of an idea about it beforehand, but then I did a bit more reading on it during the week. Extreme E. So an all-new electric series featuring SUVs. dubbed as an electric Dakar. So, if you're all familiar with the Dakar Rally, this is basically an electric version of it. Plans is, obviously, it's going to be a championship, and they're going to be racing in places that are affected by climate change to raise awareness about it. And you've got all the familiar Formula E names team-wise. You've got Venturi, you've got Abt, Veloce, and HWA, obviously, who are associated with Mercedes, and then some American names like Andretti and Chip Ganassi Racing as well. So I had a look at the drivers that are interested in racing as well, and it's just bustling with talent. I can read a couple of out for you as well, just to show you how excited we are for this. And, seeing some Formula E regulars like Lucas de Grassi, Andre Lotterer, I think Oliver Turvey was on that list as well. But then names like Billy Monger as well got me really exciting, because it'd be great to see him doing some racing as well. Da Costa's there, Lotterer, Bruno Senna, Catherine Legg as well, and just the list goes on. So come on, Dino, tell us a bit more about Extreme E, because apparently it's been likened to pod racing for some reason.
Pod racing. I mean, the Tatooine, I think it's Tatooine that they were racing around.
Yep.
Maybe the backdrop might look similar from Dakar, but I think that's as far as it goes. They still have wheels, so we've probably still got a wee way to go in that. But it is. And we start at the Dakar Rally on the 23rd, 24th of January 2021, and we move through to Saudi Arabia in March, in May, Nepal, which should be interesting, Greenland in August, and then in October, Brazil. So what they're trying to do is have different sort of legs with different, affected areas that are heavily affected by climate change. And so you've got a sort of forest in Brazil, Nepal with some snow and ice, and then obviously desert stages with Senegal and Saudi Arabia. So it should be quite interesting in that respect. One of the main drivers that I was looking at, Sebastian Oga, 6-time consecutive WRC champion, 2013 to 2018, and rightly so. That picture is right at the start if you look up the drivers tab on the website. It's exciting. It is a little bit of a different, what would I call it? It's a different layout of the championship in different stages. So normal rallies, they have stages, and it's the best time, and etc, etc. With this, so the race format, we're looking with 2 separate sort of qualifying. So the qualifying is head-to-head, and 6 drivers will go through to the semi-final, and then there's something called the Crazy Race, which I've got no idea what the Crazy Race is. So
Crazy Race.
Qualifying is timed. Get in the first 6, you go straight through to the semi-finals, and then 7 to 12, you go through to something called the Crazy Race. I'm sure we'll get a little bit more information about that. And then from the semi-finals, obviously through to the final, and I think that's 3 versus 3. So 2 days of racing, 1 full battery charge per day for each team. So you can't use it all and go hell for leather, and then you got nothing at the end of it. Each team races twice on Saturday in qualifying 1, qualifying 2, semi-final 1, semi-final 2, the Crazy Race, and final on the Sunday. Each race is 2 laps, 1 lap driven by a female driver and 1 lap driven by a male driver. So this was released a wee while ago, that they would be mixed gender teams. And all results are based on race finishing position, not time. So, have a look on the website for a bit more of information about that. Each driver, this is sort of a level playing field about the series. So each driver will complete one lap behind the wheel with a changeover. So if you're missing changeovers or driver swaps from Formula E, then Extreme E has you covered. And the teams will determine which driver goes first to best suit the strategy. And the driver selections are made confidentially. There we go. That's a big word. With competitors kept in the dark as other teams' choices until the cars reach the start line, which is quite cool. So you don't know who's up first or who you're against, just to, make sure that if Ogier's against Jean-Eric Verne, he could be against someone completely different. So there's no sort of, there's no playing off against each other in the strategy.
So basically just all an element of mystery, I guess, and basically racing, like a survival race, as you said, to conserve your battery because you only get one for the whole day or for the whole stage. So sounds pretty rugged and rough, I got to say, but exciting at the same time.
Yep. And there's a few natural challenges just to, throw that into the mix. Hazards to navigate. Extreme gradients. We like a good gradient and a good tip. Jumps, banks, berms, pits, dunes, and water splashes. That sounds a bit tame, but I'm sure it's a bit more than
water splashes.
I'm sure it's a little bit more.
That sounds like something. It sounds like something Bernie Eccleston would do.
Oh yeah, yep. So sprinklers and other things on the course, obviously. Yep, probably more like natural rivers and things. So that's a quick overview of the series. And I think I was wrong on the race format qualifying. I don't think it is timed. I think it is positions. So, sorry about that.
All right. That's okay. Something new to learn, I'm sure. But just quickly, we're not going to be racing in the Serengeti, are we? By any chance?
Oh, I would love and we go green in the Serengeti. It still gets me.
I've got to say, yesterday at the train station, there was a little ad for a rainforest or a national park in the Serengeti, and all I could hear while watching it was Chris's voice saying, "And we go green in the Serengeti." I don't know. It's been in my mind all ever since I heard the podcast. So yeah, it's basically just going to be ingrained in our memories forever, that one. So if you're listening, Jack Nichols, please, you've got to get on that.
It's the best thing we've done.
It's our swan song, isn't it?
No, not at all. But it definitely goes down as a highlight. Top. If you do a season review at the end of this year, top 5 moments. I think that'll definitely be up there. So no, Extreme E really sounds exciting, and the fact that they're going to start it off at Dakar as well, and Dakar already gets enough publicity and attention for the event that is. I always keep an eye on it, to see how Toby Price is doing on the bikes. Obviously a 2-time winner there. Carlos Sainz Senior still racing and winning at Dakar as well was quite amazing, and now just adding another component to it with Extreme E as well. I think Alejandro Agaga's kind of let's say done a good job again getting another electric category up and running.
Yeah, he has done a good job. I mean, Agag's one of those guys who he never does anything half-hearted. If he's going to do something, he's going to do it right. And I mean, the current look of Extreme E when it does debut is super exciting. I mean, we've got some big name drivers in there, Sebastian Ogier, Daniel Abt, and co. And it's very exciting, and the race format, the mystery, the locations, it is very good, and it's all for a good reason as well. It's continuing to race for a purpose, and arguably, even more so, because by racing in these environments, we're really going to see the damage that climate change has done and the continued environmental impact. And yeah, I think it'll be a very meaningful race series.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's the underlying motive for this, is to broadcast or showcase to the world the impact of climate change on these, certain ecosystems and areas that often we don't see or hear about, but it is happening. So, again, with that positive message, Agag and his team have done a pretty good job on that. So hopefully it starts off well. I hope it's not going to be impacted too much by the global pandemic at the moment. I know 2021 does seem like a long time away, but we're already halfway through 2020. So hopefully their planning hasn't been too affected by this, and we do get to see them in their first race at Dakar. All right, well, let's move it on. Formula One, there's been a lot of news in the last 2 weeks alone, basically ever since we had the announcement that Sebastian Vettel was leaving Ferrari and Carlos Sainz would come in and replace him. Daniel Ricciardo to McLaren. No news on the driver front, but we have had quite a few regulation changes confirmed as well for the future, and also first 8 races for 2020 confirmed as well. So we'll get straight into that then. Basically, everyone would be aware, unless you've been living under a rock all this time, that Formula One will be introducing a performance budget cap from 2021. Those plans haven't changed, even though the proposed 2021 aero regulations have been delayed a year to 22, but now the budget cap has actually been reduced from once 175 million US to 145 million, and that is actually going to go down in the years to come as well once they start getting into the swing of things. So one thing that the sports governing body, Formula One management and the FIA have kind of clamped down on is ATPs, aero testing periods, which is basically the allowance given to each team to conduct wind tunnel testing and all that. That's going to be severely reduced compared to where it is at the moment, given how expensive it actually is. And then some teams actually don't even get to do wind tunnel testing because they A, don't have a wind tunnel, and B, can't afford it. So there's going to be a handicap style system, and I hate using the term handicap in motorsport or with this in Formula One, purely because whenever someone thinks of handicap, it's always derogatory. But I think the way F1 has done this is actually really smart and doesn't seem like they're tying one hand behind your back like they do in sports car racing and GT racing with balanced performance. So this is going to be a system based on the Constructors' Championship standings from the previous season. So whoever finishes first in the championship this year, let's say Mercedes, maybe it will be Mercedes, they'll only get 90% of their base aero runs in the wind tunnel. So the base number will be 40 runs per year. So Mercedes, if they finish P1, will only get 90% of that number, which equates to 36, whilst whoever's 10th in the championship, or if there's a new team that comes in for next year, so let's say P10, it's going to be Williams, let's all admit. They'll get 112.5% of that, which will be 45 runs per year. And basically, for 2021, it'll be, I think, 2.5% increments that number will change, going through the order of the Constructors' Championship, and then 2022 it will change to 5% plus or minus for each team, and whoever's P1 in 2021 will only get 70% of the base runs, while 115% for P10. So a lot to swallow, I know, but how do you guys, what do you guys think of this system compared to, let's say, other handicap systems in the world in motorsport? Do you think this is going to even out the playing field? I know it's not going to happen instantaneously, but Formula One obviously has the long-term vision for this, that, it's going to compress the field. So some thoughts on that?
I'm not sure it will compress the field. I mean, I would like to say that, Mercedes is number one for a reason, and they're just super slick in everything that they do, it seems, As a race team, they just make things work and less mistakes. And I still feel like 70% of these ATP runs, I still feel like they'll be able to do more with it than Williams getting 115%. So be interesting to see, and I always say that, be interesting to see if it will actually close up the field, Also, does Williams have the budget for all those runs? It's going to be, I know you're a bit more on the pulse with this, Chris, and you might have a little bit different thoughts to me on this vision, but yeah, I don't think it will, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. First and foremost, I think we can all agree that the budget cap is very good. And it's nice to hear that it will continue to go down as well. You've got teams such as Mercedes operating on 400 million a year, while Williams are running on 130 million, not 130 pounds, 130 million.
It's not that bad, is it?
Get it out of the back
It's
wallet.
not that bad.
Surprise!
Oh,
News
no.
for you. Anyway, so I think that's a good move. It does hopefully level a playing field, and I think the ATP reduction based on championship position, I would say it is a good move. I think compared to other systems that are similar to this in motorsport, such as balance of performance, like you said, in sports cars, I think this is fairer. I think if you build a good car, you shouldn't be punished for it. You shouldn't have your performance reduced, so it's a more level playing field. I think that's wrong. You should be rewarded for your efforts. But with this, it could, and I express could very strongly, it could level the playing field. But like Dino said, the difference, so let's say Mercedes finish first and get 36 of the base 40 runs, I do think they would achieve more than the team that is in last place with the 45. Because in theory, they have less work to do, in theory. They already had a good season last year. They're already the team to beat going into the new season. But for a team such as Williams, who will be at the back of the grid and are struggling financially, in the 45 runs that they would do, let's face it, could they really close the gap? Would that really benefit them? It would benefit them, for sure. It's more testing time, and we know from 2019 how important testing is for Williams, and and that's a good move in my opinion. But will it close the playing field? I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's a good idea nonetheless. And then there's also the whole financial aspect as well. Williams are in a very bad position at the moment, and could they really afford that wind tunnel testing period? Probably not. For a midfield team such as McLaren or Racing Point, though, yeah, I could see that. But the further you go down the grid, despite them being served up this theoretical advantage, practically it might not work for that reason.
Does it then come down to, and going back to what Chris was saying about Mercedes just being the best in everything they do, it's very true, and I've said this all along the last few years, that the reason Ferrari can't win a championship is because they're not well-oiled enough. Is the people that you have on your team, we're talking about engineers, we're talking about management as well. Let's say, obviously, as a result of the cap coming in, you're going to have to offload staff as well, which we've seen, unfortunately, at Renault and McLaren. They've ended up having to, make redundant quite a bit of staff. And then, of course, the situation at Williams as well. They're looking to even sell the team, or a partial sell, which I'm sure once upon a time, Sir Frank Williams would have shuddered at the thought of that, because they've been offered many times, or the thought has come in and they've declined it. But how you go about hiring staff now? So let's say Williams, let's say someone bails them out, they get a little bit of money in the pocket. What if they end up with a crack engineer? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, they end up with a James Allison or something, and even with the limited funds and also with those 45 runs, let's say, that they have, could someone, engineering mind like James Allison, get Williams, turn them around, not to like a championship winning team, but like get them out of the hole they're in with those 45 runs? Because the way I see it is that the best teams, even with reduced running, they still have the best engineers and everything, and they're still going to maximize the runs that they have. Like, for me, that's innovation, is that here's the tools we're going to give you, you do something with those, and the cream always rises to the top. So maybe it's all about how Williams go about restructuring their team, who they have on that team that could make the impact. Like, do you reckon that could be a factor in all this as well?
It's such fine margins, isn't it? If Williams, they are a good oiled machine. Their pit stop times, some of the calls are a bit dubious, but they're always at the back. So if they don't really have the chance or the experience lately of making those race winning decisions like Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull do, but yeah, I do hope that they survive. It's sort of everyone's second team. I'm a McLaren fan, just putting it out there, and sort of Williams is my second team. I love Bottas though, so I do hope Mercedes continues. But McLaren, Renault, their let go of staff, they're just getting in early, aren't they? Really, it's as a sign of the times, and you will see that from the other teams also. It is just the way it's going to go with the performance cap and with that decreasing. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
Exactly. So, and even though we're not going to have the big rule change or regulation change for next year, there's going to be some adjustments to obviously cater for Pirelli, so they don't end up having to build a whole new compound of tyres to accommodate big changes. So they're just going to, I think, clip the rear of the floor on both sides of the car to basically nerf the performance to keep them to what they are performing at this year. But they'll be allowed to do on the cars minor developments like wings and side pods and stuff like that. So there'll be a freeze on any major development, and power units, I think, are going to be frozen as well. So they're not spending ridiculous amounts of money to develop them forward. So which could be, I don't know, would that be a hindrance for someone like a Renault who is playing catch up, and given Honda the performance and the progress that they're making, could this mean that they're kind of caught in a holding pattern as well?
I'll let you go with this one, Chris.
Fantastic. That's a good question. I think it's interesting. I mean, we have got this, slightly revised floor thing for next year. I think it's supposedly going to equate to like a half a second a lap loss. Then there's also that freeze on the developments, as you said, and yeah, I think it's an extra year on the current set of regulations, really, with very minimal evolution. And that will impact some teams. If a team doesn't have the right package now, they will inevitably suffer in the future. And Williams, for instance, that car is awful. It's absolutely horrible. I don't know if it's changed much over the years, but Paddy Lowe didn't do anything. And then the current Renault package as well. It's barely been evolved since 2017. And I think that really began to manifest last season. You know, whether we're going to say, oh, we're going to get fourth, we're going to push towards third, and ended up fifth, and a long way off the pace, and losing their star driver to McLaren this year, beaten by the customer team. But yeah, definitely, I think it will just equate to a freeze, really, as you said, and yeah. That freeze will. I think it'll just mean that we see a very similar pecking order to Formula One as it will be when it does resume. Minor tweaks and changes, but whatever a team does have now will be that package. But obviously, I mean, just to talk on a change that's related to this, we have McLaren next year going to Mercedes engines. One of their big challenges will be sticking that Mercedes power unit in a car that's built for a Renault engine, which will be very interesting to see. I can't wait to see how teams do deal with this, because it'll be a very interesting situation for sure.
I think we're going to see more of this anyway, wherever in global motorsport, that, next year is kind of like a holding year for whatever you've developed in 2020, because I know for sure the Supercars Championship here, they're going to be running basically the same cars that they have this year, because this year was supposed to be the last year that they run the Holden Commodore chassis, so as a result, next year they're going to be able to run them again, but without Holden branding, because that brand no longer exists. But yeah, I guess, does that mean Mercedes win the next 2 years guaranteed? Who knows? I'm sure a lot of people will hope not, but, see what if Red Bull, Ferrari come up with anything in this time to the silver bullet, if it is. But to end on this topic, I guess regardless of the pandemic, because I feel like the pandemic's kind of accelerated things with the budget cap, and also having a sliding scale and all that sort of jazz. This is the direction F1 should have gone in for the beginning, just to secure its own future, because I don't think we can live in a world anymore with motorsport, or like we can't live in a motorsport world anymore where there's unlimited spending and, write a blank check and basically go out. Like we saw, years ago, they banned all the unlimited testing that people had. Ferrari would just go into their backyard or to Fiorano every odd other weekend and basically do a whole heap of testing, and that's why, they had a leg up on everyone all the time. But now, I guess, yeah, we can't go on spending unlimited amounts of money.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that regardless of the pandemic, this is the direction F1 should have gone in. We've seen over the past 10 years teams join Formula One and leave Formula One because they've gone into bankruptcy and gone into administration, because it is that financially unaffordable. And I think in a time like this, even with the present situation, it should be financially affordable, because Formula One has become so expensive over recent seasons. Since 2014, for instance, with these hybrid power units, the expense is extraordinary. And I'm not surprised teams didn't, Marussia specifically, Manor, whatever they were called, Virgin.
The star, once upon a time.
Yes, that team, the red and black one with a bit of white. I'm not surprised they didn't really survive that first season, and they did. Yeah, just it didn't survive long term. I thought they were scrapped in 2014, but they lasted until 2016, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they took a year off, I think, or they used they used the equivalent of a
car.
Yeah, so they did make it to 2016, and actually had a Mercedes engine too.
Yes, they did.
I was, so excited because Pascal Wehrlein made his debut with those guys. But anyway, go on, Chris.
Yeah, so anyway, and I mean, with this budget cap now, it should, touch wood, hopefully, should encourage other teams to join Formula One. I hope, because at the moment we have a 20-car grid, and certain teams are also struggling financially. There might be more dropouts at the rate we're going at, and with this fresh budget cap, I think teams will have the chance to, instead of hemorrhaging money like Renault have been, they have this chance to run a Formula One team like a business. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. It's a chance for teams and prospective outfits to go, actually, this is something we can commit to. And instead of teams leaving, more could commit. And it'll also increase the appeal for manufacturers as well. We've seen, just to go back to Formula E, Formula E as a championship has more manufacturers and factory teams on the grid than any other form of motorsport. Any other form, you've got the big German four and you've got Jaguar and Mahindra, who are massive in India, and the sorts. And this is really a fresh chance for Formula One to get out of the doldrums, but also a chance to really embrace a bright future. And it all starts from here. With this budget cap, it really could may do wonders, really. And it is such an exciting opportunity for the sport. And absolutely, this should have been done years ago. It should have been done years ago. Yeah, but better late than never, I suppose, right?
Exactly. Dino, you got anything to add to that?
No, that's pretty well summed up.
Yeah.
We don't want the likes of Haas, etc., Williams to be thinking about leaving. We want a consistent amount of cars on the grid, and it'd be good to get some new brands and manufacturers in there.
Always it would be exciting. And at worst, you basically, as a business, as Chris was saying, at worst you just want to be able to break even for the season financially, and then obviously profit as a result of that. But quite a bit still needs to be done behind the scenes, I guess. Renegotiating, or when the Concord agreement is up, I think this year or something, renegotiating how prize money and all that is distributed as well. So I still think, I knew when Liberty Media took over Formula One that it was going to take years to completely break out of the shackles that had been put on by the previous commercial rights holders, CVC and Bernie Eccleston, basically. So, still quite a few of those draconian rules ruling F1. And an interesting one that I didn't even know about was that back, I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s, that Bernie basically brought in a rule that said each team has got to have 2 cars and they've got to have the same livery as well. And that's been a rule that's been embedded in the sport. So there's no possibility for like a 1-car team, or let's run different liveries on, or consistent. It's got to be a consistent sponsor on both cars. Like, let's have one sponsor on one car, one sponsor on another car, stuff like that. So who knows? It's all things for the future, as we say. And to round it out, and we had the news come in early this week about the first 8 races being revealed for 2020. So just reading off the list in summary, we got 2 races back-to-back in Austria, then we go over to Hungary, then Silverstone for back-to-back races as well, and they're going to do the 70th anniversary celebrations for F1 there at the second race in Silverstone, August 7 to 9, and I think that's really apt as well, that we're going back to the home of Formula One, where it all began back in 1950. Then after our 2 Silverstone races, we go to Barcelona, to Spain, Belgium, and then Italy at the start of September. So, the 5 things that they're going to be doing while on track, obviously they're going to be closed events. No fans will be allowed at the moment, but there's going to be ongoing testing, frequent testing in the paddock as well for the virus. Minimum amount of people on track too, so travelling with very little staff, and also travelling isolated travel too. So traveling in a bubble, making sure that there's no outside contact as well. And then, of course, enforcing the physical and social distancing rules in the paddock and on the track too. So that means I think they're going to change up. They've said that they're going to change up the podium ceremony as well to incorporate that. But contractually, 8 races are required to have a valid F1 World Championship. Is this the insurance policy that in case there is a further breakout outside of Europe and F1 can't travel to the other countries they want to, is this, where let's get all these races in Europe done and over with so we have some kind of championship to call 2020?
Yeah, that's great. It would be good to be able to have a valid F1 World Championship, like you say, and if you can't go to China, Japan, etc., then yeah, they've got to make sure that they get it in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's this insurance policy, isn't it? Austria, Hungary, Silverstone, Spain, Belgium, Italy. It is the 8 races that are required, and it's definitely the right approach. It'll be nice to get the racing underway as well, and Formula One being Formula One, I'm sure they'll have learned a lot from Australia, and they'll have the correct protocols in place now. And running with the skeleton crews behind closed doors, isolated travel, it is a good move. And even if the season was European, let's say, there are other tracks in Europe that could work. We've got the Algarve circuit in Portugal that could be an option to add another race if the
Great circuit.
Yeah, if the Asian or American or Middle Eastern races didn't go ahead. There's horrible rumours that Sochi might host a doubleheader.
Poor Ricard.
Which is tragic.
The Sochi snooze fest, I think you can call that one.
See, the sad thing is, right? Sochi's a horrible track. I think, well, it's crap. Let's face it. But the thing is, no one visits it anyway. No one goes to the race. It's in the middle of nowhere. But you also have the Olympic Park and the Olympic Village there, so it's perfect for staying isolated.
There you go. So I think you might have hit the nail on the head with that one, actually. So, as you say, Olympic Park there, so you'll all stay isolated. But you know what? If they just do one race there, I think I'll be satisfied with that. I couldn't handle 2.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, there's been a lot of talk about formats and stuff like that, and I think this one's kind of dead and buried anyway now, but we'll still talk about it. The fact that they considered a reverse championship order qualifying race, especially for those double-header weekends. So Austria and Silverstone, we would have seen on the second weekend at those respective circuits that they would have had this 30-minute reverse championship order qualifying race. So yeah, it's dead and buried because I think it was Mercedes, Toto Wolff, who wasn't agreeing with it, and they all have to be unanimous with their vote. So, if say it was going to happen, guys, would you be fans of it? Would you just say it's a gimmick that they should avoid? What do you think?
Ooh, I like the idea of it, but I mean, if it's going to be a short sort of super season where you've got 8 races, 10 races, and if they can make it work with points and bits and pieces, or just qualifying, I'm open to new things. But really, I don't think it's going to be one that gets through the door, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an idea, and I think if bearing in mind what we've gone through in 2020, it's an opportunity to test it, really, if anything. But when I first heard of this, one of my main concerns was the event of an accident, We do see accidents in qualifying, but if there's an accident in a reverse grid qualifying race, it leaves teams with a potentially massive rebuild ahead of Sunday's main event. And it does increase cost for that reason. You would need more spare parts. And that was one of my main concerns around it. But, yeah, at the end of the day, it was an option to test it, if anything. I'm not against testing new things in Formula One. I think, as a championship, it should look to the future and go, actually, what if we did this and be open to change? But yeah, I understand why teams have gone against the idea of this. And it does make sense from that perspective.
Yep, and yeah, I do agree with you, Chris, on that. For rebuilds, if there are crashes, and given the tight turnaround as well that we have between these events and, the travel and everything too, I think it would be a bit difficult. But yeah, they should take this opportunity to try a few new things. So let's wrap things up, and quickly before that, Chris, we know Formula One, we know when it's coming back, July 5th. Any mail on how or when we might see Formula One restarting? Oh, sorry, Formula E restarting. Anything on that?
Formula E at the moment is still in its suspension period. I think June and July are red flagged months. So basically, Formula E are operating this flag system that's entirely coherent with the racing flags as well. Yellow means, caution. We could go racing here, but we might not. Red means, hold on, stop, we're not doing anything. And green means, let's do it. And we're currently under a red flag period for June and July. But I believe the consensus is that they might go racing in August, which is exciting. And ideally, they want to get the championship wrapped up by September so they can start preparing for Season 7 with battery tender and all of this and all of that. Again, these races would most likely be, they would be behind closed doors. And Berlin Tempelhof circuit has been mentioned. It's done the rounds on the news beat. The championship might look towards hosting a series of double-header events there for 3 weekends. So that would be 6 races potentially. And the best thing is with Berlin Tempelhof circuit, it's entirely isolated from the city. It's still in the city centre, but it's on an old, disused airport apron, which is fantastic. And you have this massive open space, and it also provides the chance to change track layouts. So it wouldn't be the same thing on repeat, and it would essentially become the home of Formula E for that period. And I think that's the most likely thing we'll see with Formula E at the moment. So skeleton crews in Berlin for 3 weekends, doing battle and sealing the championship. I wouldn't like to name the races though. You like Berlin 1, Berlin 2, Berlin 3. It'd be very confusing.
Or just like jumble up the
scenario.
Jumble up the titles, so you have the Berlin E-Prix and then you have the E-Prix of Berlin, or the Tempelhof something rather. But yeah, given that
Germany. Yeah.
The race of West
I'm joking. It is in the west of Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah, it is in the west of Berlin.
Well, there is a bit of a sense in that. But yeah, given that we're halfway through, or we've actually started that championship and, there's points on the board and everything, we'd really like to see it concluded and everything as well, and to have a champion as a result of it. So yeah, well, that pretty much wraps it up then. And before we leave, where can we find you guys? Plug your socials as we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Twitter @Regen Racing, and that's where I am in charge of the Twitters. So yeah, hit us up there. I'm on there a lot. Instagram and Facebook @Regen E Racing Pod, and the website www.regenracingpodcast.com. And we have a very snazzy website where you can listen to the most recent episode. And we're found on everything: podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, of course, just all over the place. If we're not, hit us up.
Yeah, you going after world domination there, Dino. So we'll let you know if there's a pocket that you haven't exploited yet. And Chris, any socials you'd like to plug, mate? Or
you can follow my personal channels by typing in @Chris_Salisbury on Twitter. What's it called? Instagram. And my Facebook page, which is in total disrepair, but you can like it if you want, is at Chris Salisbury Journalist.
Okay, there you go. One for all the botters to get behind, I think. And yeah, if you want to follow Chris's...
Yes, please. Yes.
That's usually that's usually what happens when you don't run a page for however long, and then you got all these bots behind it. But also Motorsport Week, that's the website we can find your work on as well, Chris, crucially. So give those guys a look, and when we get more news for Formula E, Chris will be all over it. But thank you very much, guys, for coming on and joining me. We had great fun. Bit of a long podcast this week, but I think we had some pretty good topics to talk about. So thank you very much.
Thank you for including us. It was, awesome as always, Jawad.
Excellent. All right, well, that wraps things up. So thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next time.